from Music for All and presented by Yamaha. It's Mind the Gap, a practical web series for young and future music educators. Tonight on the program, from the music education team at the Yamaha Corporation of America, Dr. Dave Gerhart and John Goldman. From Carmel High School in Carmel, Indiana, Michael Pote and Kyle Young. Tonight's conversation moderated by David Starnes. Please welcome David Starnes.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to Mind the Gap. This is session 21, entitled Using the HD-300 as a Curricular Tool. My name is David Starnes, and I serve as an education consultant to Music for All. I'm also the director of orchestras at Kennesaw Mountain High School in the Cobb County School District. We hope that everybody's having a fantastic summer and starting to relax just a little bit. Maybe it's feeling like summer. I know some of you guys are just now getting out of school based on the extended school year this year with the COVID-19 pandemic. But we hope that you're starting to relax a little bit. So at Music for All, we talked about the summer symposium not being a face-to-face activity this year. And hopefully that's going to be back next year. We're keeping our fingers crossed that all that's going to happen. But in lieu of the summer symposium, we're going to offer some different enrichment teaching opportunities in service, if you will, in lieu of that. And tonight is certainly one of those. The next one will occur on July the 20th. With Susan Smith will be hosting, and it's going to be about starting back out of the pandemic from a recruiting standpoint, from a middle school standpoint, as well as where do we pick up and leave to the next year. We have two groups of sixth graders, essentially, this new group coming in and a group that's going out that's going to be very much on the front cusp of being behind after not being face-to-face in some situations. So join Susan for that one on July the 20th. Tonight, session 21 is going to be focused on the Yamaha Harmony Director 300. We know that those are starting to show up in the United States, and we're excited that some of you may even have yours already. Our two guests tonight that will be demonstrating those, Mr. John Goldman from the Yamaha Corporation of America, as well as Mr. Michael Pote, who is one of the directors at Carmel, will be actually demonstrating those live. You'll get to see one tonight. So without further ado, let me introduce our esteemed panelists. And when I put this program together, I kind of put it in three different parts. We have one part that's the education, the people that are the hands-on in the classroom doing that. And the second part of that is the marketing end of that from Yamaha. So we can really kind of talk about, how you can receive one of these and the support that you can get once you receive it. And then following that, we also have somebody that's actually more of the technology end of that. And so you're going to actually get three parts of this tonight. Our education panel includes two fine veteran music educators, Mr. Michael Pote, who is the director of bands at Carmel High School in Carmel, Indiana, and one of his associates, Mr. Kyle Young, who's also one of the directors at Carmel High School. Just two fabulous people that put not only the Harmony Director first series and second series together, but now this 300 series, part of their daily curriculum. So you're going to get to see how they're going to use those. Also, from the Yamaha Corporation of America, we're very, very honored to have Dr. Dave Gerhart. Dave is a phenomenal mind when it comes to music education. He has not only the performance background, he has the education background, and works as a part of the band and orchestra marketing division as well, which I think is going to be very helpful in terms of how you could potentially receive one of these. And our third panelist is Mr. John Goldman. John is a part of the Yamaha Corporation of America and serves as a product manager. He saw this product come to life as they were being developed worldwide and produced in Japan. And you're going to have the opportunity to hear from John, to actually ask questions during the session about the capabilities of the Harmony Director, things that are different from the Harmony Director 200 to the Harmony Director 300. And that's going to be very, very valuable, I think, especially if you're already on that platform and to be able to move into that. So we're super, super excited that you've joined us tonight. And we think this is going to be an incredible session for you. And again, again, if you're joining us via podcast, something that you can actually archive and use this down the road once you do receive your Harmony Director, again, something to refer to as well. So thank you for being with us tonight.
Really pay attention, you'll notice some significant differences. And the first one that I'm going to highlight after the simplified interface is this section right here. This is the recording section. So this is one thing that the 300 has that the 200 didn't, and that it has a fully functioning ability to record live for instant feedback to the performers. Or if you're practicing on your own. I was tootling around with some of the functions earlier today with the French horn, and I was like, I really want to see how bad I sound, because the French horn is a pandemic project for me. And I was able to sit and record myself playing some scales. I was able to use some of the other functions, but it really is a very simple addition that changes, I think, a lot of the possibilities of what the Harmony Director can do in the classroom. It simplifies your podium setup. Everything is at the touch of a button. It's all at your fingertips right now. You don't have to have a separate recording interface with separate microphones, with a separate computer running a digital audio workstation. It can all happen with just by plugging in a flash drive and recording to the flash drive on the Harmony Director. The microphone quality is good. The preamp quality is clean. If you have a microphone that you like using, it has a stereo mini input with gain control in the back. The other one is specifically regarding the recording function and the addition of a microphone is this button right here. This is the soundback button. If I had this when I was working with the high school in the capacity that I did in my younger years, this would have been a game changer for me. It can be tough enough for students to quickly grasp the concept of what it feels like to play a major third in tune. Having to lower the pitch as significant as you do. In this case, though, the soundback button allows the Harmony Director to provide instantaneous feedback to someone who is maybe struggling to figure out where that pitch is. So the example that I always give is if you're in B flat major and you're working with your trombone section and you have someone struggling to find where that concert D sits, all you need to do is turn on the soundback button. And when they start playing, if it's trombone, the Harmony Director utilizing the microphone is going to instantly analyze not only the pitch they're playing, but where they sit in the pitch. It's going to analyze the note they're playing. You tell the keyboard what key it's in. In my case, I'm in pure B flat major. So it knows where the D should sit, and it's going to sound back using the speakers or the audio system that you're playing, not only exactly where the pitch should be for the player, so they can work on aligning to the Harmony Director as an audible example, but it's also going to be able to instantly analyze the octave and the timbre that they're in. So it's going to find the nearest sound patch to what they're playing, no matter what you've identified over here, and it's going to play it back in the octave that they're playing in. So really what you get at that point is you get not only an audible feedback from the Harmony Director, but the student now goes through the physical process of aligning their pitch. And I just think that that's a fantastic addition to the Harmony Director. Jumping over to the metronome section, the rhythm style is another great one. There are preset rhythm styles, 8-beat, 16-beat, waltz, march, bossa nova, swing. They're preset rhythms that you don't have to use the metronome sliders to now adjust and build yourself if you want to give a quick demonstration of something, of a basic rhythm that's in the style of music that you're playing. And I won't go too much further because you get me started. Mike knows I can geek out on this all day to talk through it. But one of the other great functions that we have built into it is now there's two-way MIDI communication with the Harmony Director. So the Harmony Director can function as MIDI input and output. You can actually import MIDI files into the Harmony Director via the flash drive and play them back through the Harmony Director. So if you have, let's say for marching band, if you have an accelerando that you've built into the show and you've programmed it into the MIDI files and your students are working off of those, you can now bring that file into the Harmony Director and just play it back through the Harmony Director. So if you are working, whether you're indoor or you're outdoor as well, because it's battery powered, you can now play that MIDI file back through the Harmony Director. And that just opens up, again, another world of possibilities. To top it all off, there's now a fully featured mobile app that works in partnership with the Harmony Director. It does have a standalone tuner built in, but you can actually demonstrate equal and pure temperament. You can actually isolate individual chord tones. You can adjust individual pitch and individual volume so that you can show students what it's like. You can do your same physical exercises like raising and lowering the hand, bouncing the hands with the interference beats. You can still do all of that stuff, and you can do it now from a mobile app. Future versions of the app will have what's called the Rhythm Assistant, and that's going to be a programmable metronome section where you can actually pre-program complex rhythms that are maybe a little bit more involved than building them here. Or if you're working on just one specific section of music, you can pre-build those rhythms, and they're multi-measure now.
That's fantastic. What great stuff. Go ahead. Sorry.
No, man, I was joking, did that in one breath.
So, along with that, Kyle, can you tell us maybe a little bit about when you're rehearsing an ensemble at Carmel, and regardless of, whether it's, the beginning group or the most advanced group you guys have, do you have a system that you use the device for primarily? I mean, is it more of a tuning thing for you? Is it more of a metronome thing for you? What are your uses with the Harmony Director?
It was funny as Jonathan was just listing all of the functions, it was coming to my mind of, yep, we use that all the time, the metronome being right there in the subdivision possibilities, the drone for whether we're doing interval exercises or anything like that. It's all right there. And I think that as Mike and I have just kind of dove into this device over the last few years, the possibilities are all right there in front of you with a single device. And so we use it for rhythmic, we use it for pitch, we use it for anything that you can think of from a fundamental standpoint. And I know that Mike will talk about how we then directly apply it into literature. So all the things that Jonathan was listing there is what we use, and we put it to practice as often as we can, whether it's beginning of the rehearsal or as we move on into literature.
What would you tell somebody, Mike, that maybe has not ever used a Harmony Director? They didn't get in on the 200 floor, and they're going to start with a 300, or they're going to propose that their school district buy them a 300, and they might be a little bit intimidated with a lot of the bells and whistles. What would you tell them?
Yeah, I think that's the biggest thing, and you and I have talked about this before too. That it's daunting to get started with it. The analogy I was trying to think about is that it's been many, many years since I taught beginning band, which every sixth grader in the country is thankful for. But when I was first started teaching a flute class, I was having to practice the flute and basically keep just one step ahead of the rest of the ensemble. And I think if you're scared to get started with it, because there's so much, and when you start talking about temperaments, it's such a large subject and it can be applied in so many different ways in literature, that just starting with something simple, just like when we talk about how we build our fundamentals in general, here's the simplest exercise. Now, how can I take this device and apply it in that way and start, because this is how it was for me. I think this is how it was for Kyle too. The first thing we used it for, we still, refer to it as a fancy F concert machine, and then started to develop more and more skills with it as we got more comfortable with it. And now our kids are more fluent with it. It's almost like it's just kind of graduated along with us. I will say that all three of our middle schools use the device too. They've all been 200 users, a few of them even before I was. And so our sixth graders through our 12th graders are hearing temperament adjustments. They're not always being told the science behind it or all the math and whatnot, but they're at least hearing it all the time.
Well, and I was going to say, I think the word you used was daunting, and it is, because there's so much capability to it, but I also feel like it's intuitive. I feel like once you start using it and it becomes more and more a part of your routine. And you know what, if you've never used it before, or if you have used it, everybody got better with technology over the last school year. So just jump in the deep end of the pool with this one as well, because it will make a difference. I can vouch for that, and those of you who use it can vouch for that. But don't be afraid of it. And you know, like Michael just said, your students will gauge where they are and when you're ready for that next level, and when they're ready for that next level. You know, I want to kind of piggyback on that question, go back to John, and maybe talk about beyond something like tonight. Is there any technical or educational support for the device from Yamaha directly?
Yeah, I mean, anybody can always reach out to us. If you have a question, you know, if we can't answer it, we know who to ask. It's easy. I think the best way to do it is the simple way is to contact us through the website. So you can either find us through the support site at usa.yamaha.com. You can email band and orchestra, so all spelled out, band and orchestra at yamaha.com. And I actually check that email address daily. So we do, again, if it's a question that we can't answer, you know, right there on the spot, if I need to, sometimes I'll reach out to Mike and I'll ask him. So yeah, or if it's something that we need to ask the designers, for something, then we can do that as well. So anytime you need a question, how to get started, I'm happy to act as a resource in that, but I think they can also talk to Music for All and find out if there's you know, if there's the opportunity to work with somebody like Mike or Kyle, even in a short term as a mentor to help get them started, help them put together, you know, how to get started, how to get out of the gate, what does day one look like? And, you know, had COVID not happened the way it did, we had a pretty robust plan to create a lot of this content, and hopefully we intend to do that in the future so that it's more available. And we will be posting some getting started videos. You can find some of them that Mike did, as well as another band director we worked with. You can find them on YouTube, and those are good things to look at first. You know, but
Well,
if
and
you're
that's
ready to take those next steps, we're here, obviously.
That's a great point that you brought up the Music for All thing, because I can tell you this is one of the things that we're going to be offering in the very near future, potentially at our summer symposium next year, for there to actually be some hands-on, you know, classes and interaction, much like this is, but an opportunity to do some Q&A things in the room. And so we see a need for that, and I think it's a wonderful tool. We just need to get it out there and have people know what's available. Speaking of getting it out there, you know, with COVID happening, and you know, we had some issues as far as the Suez Canal and getting some things shipped. Can you talk a little bit about what your knowledge is of that, Jonathan? I know you've got your finger on that pulse pretty well as far as product availability and where they might go and what retailers might be able to have this.
Yeah, so I would say, you know, they are shipping now. They have arrived in the country. The first big shipment has already arrived and turned around and gone out the door. So as you said earlier, some of you out here may actually already have yours. But yeah, things continue to be difficult as far as the supply chain. So we're not getting them as fast as we want to, as we would like to get them out to you. But they are coming. They are on their way. They are being produced, and we will get them out the door as soon as we possibly can.
So they should just contact their local music store
Yes.
vendor.
Yeah, absolutely. If you have a dealer that you work with, a local Yamaha dealer, then please contact them directly. If you have a rep that calls on you, ask them about it. But we are actively taking orders, and product is shipping as it becomes available.
Will there be a model on the display at Midwest this year?
That's the plan. Yeah,
that's
absolutely.
Fantastic.
Yeah,
okay,
we plan
fantastic.
to do a full display as we normally would at Midwest.
Great, fantastic. Well, we're going to jump topic real quick, and we're going to talk about rehearsal implementation. And this is more, I think, more geared towards the educational side of things. And I'm going to ask Michael he's already mentioned the word a couple of times. I remember the first time I heard temperament, I was a college student and I went out to check the weather. But, if you're not aware of what temperament is and how that really coincides with the harmony director, Michael, can you take us through just your terminology of equal and pure temperament and how that might relate to what we're going to talk about tonight?
Yeah, so I'll cover a 10-hour subject in about 2 minutes if I can. So the concept of temperament, which to me, is something that I really didn't dive into as much as a director even until the last 10 years. I think Kyle's the same way. I mean, if you look at historically, if you follow the scale all the way back in history, it starts generally, people will say, with Pythagoras. And so we talk about the Pythagorean scale. It's not a temperament, because everything that came after that is a slight adjustment of theoretically what Pythagoras created in his scale, or tempering. So the idea of moving one note one direction to make it sound better with another note. Now, the issue that happened throughout history, and again, there's a lot of great text on this subject if you get into it. But the problem is that if you move one note one direction to make it sound good with one note, it does not sound now good with another note. And so this was the process through all the tempering until we got to a place technologically where we could find a way to divide the scale equally into 12 parts. And that's what was created with equal temperament. So you have pure temperament, which is the one that the harmony director deals with the most, is a temperament that involves making sure that most of the fifths and most of the thirds, both major and minor, sound well with each other, or what we call pure fifths and pure thirds. So in an equal temperament, all intervals are essentially impure, but they're only slightly impure, so you don't notice it as much. So all that put together, when we're working with wind ensembles, we try to use a combination of equal in certain situations and then pure temperament in others. The most common way we would talk about pure temperament initially would be at cadence points. So we're resolving a 5 chord to a 1 chord. We could then talk about making sure we're adjusting the third a certain direction, adjusting the fifth a certain direction to make it sound good. And that's just kind of a nutshell of it. But I think the thing that people sometimes get scared about is knowing when to implement what where.
Well, and the thing that the harmony director, even the 200 and the 300 now with some of the new functionality, kids can actually see what that looks like now. I mean, I think that's the important thing of where you are in terms of the pitch reference of those things and what that looks like in a difference of pure temperament and equal temperament, mm-hmm. how they have to manipulate their sound. So that's another teaching tool. I have a friend that actually is using the harmony director, and I don't know if he's using it as a camera. And John, maybe you can talk about this like we're doing tonight, but they actually use it overhead as an LCD screen readout. And so the students can actually see the screen that the teacher's looking at across the entire room. Michael, do you and Kyle do anything like that?
You know what, we don't. And one of the things that we talk about in the exercise book that Kyle and I and Andy Bruff have worked on with John Fannin is we don't get caught up in the math with the kids. We talk to the kids about significant adjustments or small adjustments one direction or the other. And we do a lot of singing, so we're just trying to ingrain it in their body that they hear these things. Now, some of them are math kids. They're all smarter than us. And so they know all this already. But if you can look at the harmony director screen right now, I've set it to where we're in F pure, and all of the adjustments are being shown. So you can see which direction every pitch is being adjusted. And the thing that's great about it is that if I want to change, we're in F major now, if I want to change to E flat major, I just play an E flat major triad, and now all of the adjustments have shifted themselves to where E flat is at 0 and everything else is adjusted.
Incredible. So just real quick before we jump into the ensemble usage, when I was talking to Dave Gerhart about this session, it's been a couple months ago, he brought to my attention, he said, I would like to have a moment to just talk about the individual testimonial that he's seen happen in his own home with his child. Dave, you want to talk a little bit about, what you saw happen when is it your daughter, I believe, was using?
I have two sons.
Okay.
Now third and fifth grade. My third grader plays cello, and my fifth grader plays violin. And I'm going to sound like the fanboy for a second, but I'm a percussionist, so I never had to use my ear other than on timpani, right? So, but just using the harmony director, they'll play out of their Suzuki books, and they'll just play the root and the fifth on the harmony director. And that they've started listening to it, and now it's actually enjoyable to hear them practice versus, a lot of kids who, start off on violin and cello at that young of an age. But the other thing that's been really great is they're learning about harmony, and they're not even realizing it. I mean, they're taking a piece, say in the key of G major, and they are like, okay, so G major has one sharp, and the root and the fifth is G and D. So they're also ingraining this harmony at a young age and realizing, like, oh, I'm learning about harmony. And then they go to the next piece, and now it's in D, and then they change the drone, and then they play through the piece. But, my wife and I are both musicians, and we'll talk to them about listen to the drone that's playing and play within that. And then we also have them sing so that they get to internalize it too. And it has made listening to them a lot more enjoyable than some of our friends that don't have a HD.
And you see them using this, pretty intuitively, and it's not a difficult thing for them to do, right?
No, I mean, they've dug into it more than I have. And, with all the buttons, I hear a metronome playing every so often, and they're recording themselves and listening back. And I mean, it's, like I said, they know more about it than I do. I've set it up in their room, and they'll practice. And I mean, I really love the recording option, so they can listen back, and listen to, and then we'll point out, my wife and I will sit there and say, okay, so listen to this and listen to how this was a little out of tune. And then they can make that adjustment, right? For that next pass, and not having to have another device, not having to have, Dad, can I borrow your cell phone so I can record myself? Just use the harmony director, so it has really helped their development as musicians. So
that's great. That's fantastic. Well, we're going to jump over to the, maybe some screen sharing things, Mike, and maybe talk a little bit about how you use this device as far as maybe some unison tuning exercises.
Sure.
Can you share with us on that?
Yeah.
And Michael, you might mention also that some of this literature that you're going to be showing tonight will be available, if it's not already, through John Fannon's publishing company. Is that correct?
Yes, this is part of kind of both a text and a ensemble rehearsal tool that Kyle Young and Andrew Bruff, who's one of our middle school directors at Creekside, we kind of put together. Essentially, it was us trying to write down what we were just doing intuitively in a format that would teach a director, not just the students, a director, how to use it more efficiently. It's called Ensemble, so it's easy to remember, and it's at fanandmusic.com. So, here's just a simple exercise that I think everyone probably uses. Here's the F concert exercise. And so when we're looking at it here on the screen, I hope my screen is sharing correctly. Yes? Okay, yes. Good. The thing that we did with the text is we created a harmony director part. So if a director is not sure what to play on the drones or what in the keyboard, it's written down for them. If they have a student that's doing that for them, or an assistant director that does that while they rehearse, they can just follow along. So, how does the harmony director help us with a unison exercise like this, where the flutes are just playing whole notes, whole rest? You can see that the drone with the markings here, it's set to pure F major. And so what's happening with this C concert is that it is 2 cents raised. It's raised 2 cents, which aligns it with the most prominent overtone that you want to create when you play unisons together. So again, it's that idea of, we may not even tell them what we're playing and why, but they're hearing it as this prominent sound. So when we play F concerts, a lot of the times we'll have just a simple drone going, and sometimes we'll even just have the overtone. They'll still be playing the F concert, but we'll just have the overtone going, with the idea of we talk to them about, we want them to hear a single pitch as actually two pitches. So when they're humming in their head what an F concert sounds like, we ask them to try and hear the F and the C at the same time. Now, if we were doing this on a standard keyboard that wasn't able to adjust temperament, the C would be out of place. It would not be where the overtone actually happens in nature. So the idea of a lot of the tempering comes from what happens naturally in nature. So I'll stop scaring. So that's just a simple exercise that everyone does, but that's how we incorporate the harmony director into it.
So does that happen at the beginning of every class period?
For us, yes, we do. We'll almost always start with some form of F concerts. Always, really the first thing that'll probably happen in any rehearsal is singing. We'll sing, Kyle will jump in on this as well. We sing almost as much as we play, especially, to be honest, with marching band. In our warm-ups before big shows, we're going to sing more than we play. So the idea of singing, because again, we're creating that mirror. The mirror, the instrument in their hand is just a mirror of whatever's inside their head. It has to be ringing with that overtone. Now, Kyle, if you want to jump in on that as well.
I think that, and how the harmony director fits in perfectly with this is there's a lot of different learning styles in the room. And we try to cover all bases with singing. Some, like Mike said, respond really well to understanding the math of the interval adjustment. And then some react really well to just hearing it and then adjusting themselves. And so that's why all of those options are there on the harmony director. And so we try to reach as many of the students as we can based on their learning style of singing, whether you're analyzing or just playing and trying to make the adjustment sound pure. So that's what we try to do early on in the rehearsal, David, and just get their ears warmed up, even before we get the horns going. So we try to keep it simple. And like Mike said, with the overtone playing, especially with the younger groups, they might not even know why it's playing. And we're just trying to bit by bit increase their knowledge before they even realize it. And so that's why the tools on the HD are just really, really crucial to what we do.
And I think what I'd like to interject here is that, you don't want to lean on the harmony director as a crutch. You got to have what in the room being singing or playing and using, maybe the how with the harmony director as a response to the what. So you don't want to lean completely on the harmony director. I think it defeats the purpose of it, if I'm hearing you guys correctly.
Yeah, we like to, it's exactly what you're saying. We use it for a while and then we don't use it to see how they've gotten these concepts ingrained in their body. And then if we have to go back to them, we do. Our rehearsals are, I think there's a lot of people who still structure their rehearsals as we do long tones, we do scales, and then we play literature the rest of the rehearsal. Our rehearsals do not look like that. Our rehearsals are, we try not to use the word warm up. We call it basics. And those basics can get inserted at any point in the rehearsal, no matter where we are in the literature. We're working on an incredibly complex harmonic moment in a Persichetti symphony. Let's stop on that one note that's got every, typical Persichetti. It's got, that chord has all the notes in it, right? Let's stop for a second. Let's sing it. Let's go back to our basic, trying to get our sound correct, with that. I'll share another exercise here real quick and that maybe helps kind of talk about how the adjustment of things can happen. So here's a real simple, just, using the F major scale. And I'm going to set the harmony director at equal, not at pure, and just play up the scale. So all the notes are being played in tune. And then with the drone. So, that exercise for us becomes one where we can start talking about, let's adjust it to pure. Because the first two intervals, if you're trying to kind of delve into this concept of adjusting pitches within a key center, the two you want to start with, because they're the most important and they're also the easiest to deal with initially, are the third and the fifth. And so now the harmony director is set now for F pure, just like it's showing on the screen. And if you look down at the flute part, and again, this is part of the exercise book that we created, A single arrow means slight adjustment up or down. Two arrows mean a significant adjustment up or down. Again, we're not saying, a third is minus 13.7. We're not worried about those numbers. And so now we hear that A concert is now being adjusted by the harmony director automatically 13.7 cents down. And then we go all the way up to the scale. And the harmony director again is adjusting the C now 2 cents up to make it coincide with how it should be if we're creating overtones. Again, the idea is we create overtones so we can create resonance.
So do you have any analogies, Kyle or Michael, that you guys use as far as that? Because that's such an intangible concept when you're talking about, pure and equal temperament. Do you have any analogies that you talk about versus just lowering or raising?
One of the things, I'll let Kyle, I know he has a ton too, but one of the things that I talk to them a lot about, just kind of an overly simplification of using pure temperament, is that the essential idea of pure temperament is taking intervals that are closer together on equal and just adjusting them out one direction or the other to allow their overtones to have room to resonate. And so, F to G, you want to play the G. In the math, it's 3.9 cents high, but you want to just play it a little bit pulled away from the F to allow it to, again, be resonant. The third is brought down in order to pull it away from the fifth above it. So that's kind of a simple idea that we kind of, when we start, especially with our freshman groups, when we start talking about that, and again, it's more based on them using their ears to hear that resonance.
So we use those first 5 notes to really create the foundation, or we call them reflexes, where the reflex is to adjust it a certain direction, whether it's minute or a little bit more substantial. And we use just those first 5 notes because it's comfortable range, something that they feel confident playing, and we know they can play with a good sound. And so that's where we start the small little bits of training. It's not we dive in and it's all of the intervals. It is just a very few. And we work with them one at a time to figure out what's the adjustment and when does it sound right? At what point have you adjusted and now it sounds correct? And so simple, and that's, you often talk about keep the exercises simple so you can work towards mastery. And that's really what we do when we first initially talk about tuning different intervals.
What do you find their tolerance is as far as the specificity of this?
So, because I think one of the things that we try to do with this subject is pacing is kept in mind at all time. And you can tell when they're saturated with too much information. Our younger kids, that happens in a shorter amount of time than our older kids. Our older kids that have experienced what it's like to really play a F major triad in tune have become addicted to overtones in any key that they can, because they understand how that can really create a completely different sonority in the ensemble. But pacing is important. And so, with our freshmen, we're going to concentrate mainly on those 3 notes and then start to try to get them to understand how it incorporates into the literature, when we talk about that. There's one more exercise, David, if you don't mind me.
Sure, go ahead.
So we just talked about melodic content, adjusting in a melodic content format. And so, you look at this simple progression of just a 1 chord, the 4 chord, then the 2, and the 5, and the 1. And I'm going to unshare so you can see what happens on the harmony director. When I play that progression on the harmony director, if you watch the screen here, because we're not locked, you can lock it so it doesn't move. It stays in pure whatever you're in. But, sorry, I went equal. Watch the screen. So as I move to B flat, the keyboard is automatically shifting everything. Then the G minor, then the C major. Even though I'm playing it in an inversion, it understands that it's C major and the F. The reason that's important is that it's keeping the roots equal tempered, which is what we want when we first start talking about harmonic content. If we leave it unlocked and do it that way, the F is equal temperament when we play an F, major triad. But then when we go to the B flat major triad, that F now is a different F, right? That F is now 2 cents raised, you know. And then if we play the C major, everything is based on C major, right? And so that's one of the, I think one of the biggest benefits of this device in the format that it works with the keyboard. One thing that if you are a user of the 200, one of the things that I love about the 300 is that these are full-size keys. These aren't the smaller keys that the 200 have, and so it just feels like a real piano the whole time. But that ability to hear the root stay equal while everything else adjusts around it is super important when you start talking about the vertical aspect of the rehearsal.
I will say, we talked earlier about getting comfortable using the device. Mike and I have both taken these home all the time, and we try to refine our skills on it to feel more comfortable before we even take it in. But the other thing that it's helped us with is being a little bit pickier with our analysis when we're looking at literature, because then we're able to break down parts of our music in rehearsal and tune the ensemble even better and balance the ensemble even better, because the harmony director directly helps us with our analysis and what to do. And it's even faster than it was before when you're just writing it in the score. You know, the harmony director directly assists you in that. And so you get a little bit of self-practice with that. And then when we talked about saturation point with the kids, when it's too much, it might be time to move on from our basics, but we can immediately jump right back to the same concept when we're involving it in the literature. It just might be in a different key center. So there's a lot of back and forth that can happen on the simple ideas, but also it helps you with the analysis part, and it makes your rehearsals even more efficient.
Well, that's a great segue, I think, to where I want to go with the topic next. You talk a lot about pitch matching. You talk a lot about F concert, and then a lot of things that you've discussed as far as maybe 3 or 4 or 5 note adjustments. Do you use it, Michael, in some of your you and Kyle's writing that you've done for the book? Are there melodic exercises that we can use as far as interval training or quicker adjustments rather than just sustains?
Well, yeah, and this is where we get into the how do we transfer it to the literature we're rehearsing.
Right.
And I think a lot of people who initially use the 200, it's part of the basics, but then once you get to that piece of music, it just kind of sits there and it's just the metronome at that point. You're not sure how to move it over. And so in the book, we use simple gifts, the melody simple gifts, kind of in a few settings to allow you to work on what you were talking about, faster adjustment. So like an example would be, you know, if we take the melody of simple gifts. So in that, what we would do is, first of all, we're going to lock it in F major so that it stays there. And so we would have the drone happening, and then they would play that melody on top of the drone sustaining, but they would listen to every pitch in relation to the drone. So we're not just talking about a simple third and a simple fifth. It's the whole melody. And so when they get to that third, they know they're supposed to be adjusting it down. And so you can, one of the great things that I love to do, especially with our young kids, is let's hold that third out. And if I just press the equal temperament, it's going to show them how much higher the third becomes. So here's the lowered third, and then you hear that pitch change directly. And they can also hear how if we play a major triad in F major, that's every note in tune and it sounds awful. And then if we just simply hit one button, it can show them that that's why it's important. But and then taking that concept of, okay, that's a simple melody, the simple gifts, it's also one that they understand, but we're working on, you know, a great grade 3.5 concert piece with one of our young bands. Let's take a melody that happens in there, and maybe it's based around E flat major, an 8-measure phrase of anything based around E flat major. We do the exact same thing. we move it to E flat major. So, oh, I got it locked. There we go. So now it's in E flat major. And so again, we have the E flat drone going, and we have them play the melody, whatever it is, whatever concert piece it is, slowly against that drone, and have them listen and adjust. And they'll hear where things grind and where things open up. And so we do that slowly and then gradually speed it up. So again, what you're talking about, they're making quicker adjustments.
So Kyle, do you do it with your younger groups and maybe even with the more advanced groups that you do as well? But do you find this helpful to have a drone happening and then maybe playing a major scale against that drone so they can hear spatial relationships and adjustments on that? Or do you do the scale integration with that?
With scales, we mainly set it to the starting pitch on the scale. And have them play best sound through the scale, diatonic scale. We typically try to avoid a lot of adjusting during scales. It's more about sound and clarity of sound. And then when we get to something like a melodic line, that's when we can really do some great work with the adjusting and listening to that. And so for scales, we will move the harmony director, the fundamental along with them so that they do center it. The fundamental of each scale. And that's really kind of the difference that we use between a melodic adjustment or scalar, where we want them to have great pitch on the fundamental and great sound all the way up through it.
Yeah, so David, I'll go ahead and just to kind of piggyback on that real quick.
Sure.
So in an exercise, here's an exercise that everybody plays, right? Here's just using the Remington or whatever you like to call it. When we use this exercise to center in equal temperament. So we will use it in equal temperament. You'll also notice that there's no fifth, because we don't want them to hear the fifth drone in equal temperament, because again, it's teaching their ears that an incorrect position of the overtone. So like Kyle was saying, the scales and this type of interval exercises is for us to teach the kids how to center the instrument, so that we then, when we do go to them and say, now you're going to adjust it down, they have an understanding of where the pitch is initially. If we skip that step, then we say, okay, just play the third lower, we just have kids playing out of tune instead of just really understanding the adjustment based on where the instrument should center.
So is it safe to say that you're teaching music theory, ear training? I mean, it's unbelievable the tools that they're gaining from this just by making the harmony director happy.
Yeah,
I guess is the way of putting that, because they're learning. I mean, I heard Dave say it with his young children that, they probably didn't know. I mean, we've all had high school students that walk in and you say a third, a fourth, a fifth, a perfect fourth. They look at you like you've, speaking a foreign language. And they're going to be able to get this. But on top of that, I'm thinking like they're walking out of the room having a conversation about equal versus pure temperament. I mean, that's another level, and people wonder like what the capabilities of this thing are. But it's a pedagogical rocket, I think.
And it allows you to do that music theory, what we call it pop-up music theory in our rehearsals. Like for 30 seconds, we're going to talk about why is this way, or why are they called perfect intervals, and those kind of things. But it's sort of the jump off of that. It's like it just, so you're not creating music theory content that feels clunky. It's all holistic. Everything relates to everything.
Have you had kids get more excited about doing music theory as a result of using this?
I think so. I think sometimes they get a little irritated at how much I drone on about it sometimes, literally and figuratively, I guess.
Yeah.
But I think what it does is it's more accessible to everyone in the room. You have an ensemble or top ensemble will have some kids that they go home every night and do Shankarian analysis, and then the third, maybe someone bottom of the clarinet section is like, I just want to play my notes. And so it's just it allows everyone to sort of get a little bit of base knowledge. And like you're saying, some of them go crazy with it.
So I'm going to put you on the spot a little bit, and maybe Jonathan as well, and Kyle. But here I am, a background in concert band and a background in marching band, and now teaching orchestra. How do you see this working with orchestra? For those of our panel that or our attendees tonight that might want to talk a little bit about or know what the capabilities are in terms of usage.
I can speak a little bit on that. I have been talking with our orchestra people about, because they use it daily. I think just in general, I think that in the string world, and I could be wrong about this, they're going to lean towards using more equal temperament than pure temperament because of the way that the tuning system works with a string and having the strings having to be tuned specifically in a certain way. But I do think, especially when you start to incorporate winds into a full orchestra segment, you do have to start talking about where we make adjustments and things like that.
Kyle, how do you use this? Do you use this with your marching winds? I would assume that you do most of this inside, but how can we adapt this to marching band?
We use it. I'm sorry, Kyle, go ahead.
So we use it with the full winds. We have an HD-300 on a portable cart that we take it to sectionals. It is kind of our lifeline, and doesn't matter how big the group is that we're working with. It's always on. We're always using it. Because we use the word, and I've used it a few times, reflexes is what we're trying to build. And for our marching band, it's crucial. I mean, it is crucial to the development of the sound of the group, of the balance and the knowledge of the group, because it's the ensemble where we have the most variability as far as skill set, and the most kids in the room at the same time. So we're actually gaining a lot of ground for all the other ensembles in our program by using it with the marching band. And so I think that honestly, the start of us using it with the marching band probably helped the concert bands a lot more than we probably initially realized, just because it's used so frequently with so many kids.
Well, and you're developing the vocabulary year round. It's not vocabulary that is, specific to one ensemble. I can see this being across the board. You've got, jazz ensembles or whatever that might be, that you've got opportunities to discuss that. John, where do you see in terms of, I'm sure you've got a size and scope of how many people across the world are using this. Do you have any numbers for us, or any data as far as how far reach this product has been used worldwide?
We're well into the tens of thousands.
Wow.
It's if you consider the fact that for a very long time, the numbers of use in countries like Japan were significantly greater than here in the United States. And it was the quality of those Japanese scholastic ensembles that are really what drove teachers, educators here in the US to start to really look into this. And if we take a look at like how that spread, it was really some kind of seminal performances that happened at the Midwest Clinic a few years back that really started driving the numbers and the interest in the Harmony Director through the roof. And now we're getting, I actually had a meeting yesterday morning with our colleagues at Yamaha Music Europe, and they're getting a lot more interest from teachers over there. And their system is got a lot of similarities, but it does have some key differences, especially in their pedagogical approaches. And but yet they're still finding ways to see the opportunity that the Harmony Director can have in their classroom.
Proof that music is a universal language, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I can tell you, you talk about, but in talking about the experience of the influence, there were teachers where I heard the words, these exact words, and I quote, come out of their mouth. This is about 10 years ago. The Harmony Director is an amazing solution for a non-existent problem.
Mm.
And now both of those teachers, who seem to be in full agreement, and I will not name names, but they are avid daily users of the Harmony Director. They're not Mike Pote and Kyle Young, I'll tell you that. But no, these were band directors that really felt like the way they were doing it was just fine. Their ensemble played just fine in tune. And then as you know, shows like conferences like Midwest and TMEA, as those started to grow their influence outside of their local markets, and the quality of ensembles like a Carmel High School started becoming more known outside of the Midwest, people started realizing that, you know what, it's not a non-existent problem. I can improve my ensemble. My kids can grasp these advanced musical concepts that the harmony director allows them to grasp in a much more efficient and shorter time period. You know, it's easier to explain these things to students using the harmony director.
Well, and I think there's so many, I mean, those of us that are veteran teachers, it's sometimes hard when a new piece of technology comes along, and we think we know it all, and then something like this slaps us a little bit and says no, 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 and it really makes you wonder about the number of years you could get back. So I would challenge any veteran educator out there to really take advantage of this opportunity, because the more you know, the more you know, right? And I think that's one of the things that all of us, all the way to the end of our career, I heard the quote the other day is evolve so hard that they have to get to know you again. And I think this is one of those things that we can look at and say, you know, this is one of those opportunities that I'm going to give my students something, get out of my routine, get out of my rut, and it might even make your lesson plan and your ensemble even that more exciting every day to jump in there, because you never know what you're going to experience. But I guess coming out of a class going like, we couldn't tune Persichetti walking in to class today, but now that I have this system in place, I just heard a difference, and so did the students. So that could be an opportunity. And I'm not just speaking Persichetti. I mean, we could talk Frank Erickson, we could talk any of the, you know, the grade 2 and 3 composers as well. There's a place for it, for sure. Mike, would you give us that information before we wrap up here again about where people can find the text for this?
Sure. If you go to, and I think Dave was going to share it in the chat as well, but it's fanandmusic.com. And the name of the text is Ensemble, an integrated approach to the Yamaha harmony director. And the text is kind of broken up into 3 or 4 different segments. It has more of a text on the how and the why. You know, one of the things that with the harmony director, the manual, the user manual, is a great tool to know what it does, but how and why was kind of the thing that I think it was missing. And that's kind of what Kyle and I and Andy tried to create in that first chunk. Then there's an entire set of exercises. There's complete parts for every section, obviously, and the harmony director. And then there's also an individual tuning sheet, which we didn't talk about this evening, but a way that we talk about how to center pitches individually as well. But that's fanandmusic.com.
Fantastic. Fantastic. Well, I want to say thank you to our guests, Dr. Dave Gerhart, John Goldman, Michael Pote, and Kyle Young for joining us tonight. This is a huge, now in our 21st episode of Mind the Gap. It's a huge investment from Yamaha, and we thank them for their support. We thank them for seeing that education is maybe a lifeline during this pandemic. And it's something we've talked about at Music for All, is the exposure of the events may not be there because of stipulations, but we certainly can be all about transparency of education. And I think tonight's a perfect example of that. Music for All's mission is to create, provide, and expand positively life-changing experiences through Music for All. Our vision is to be a catalyst to ensure that every child across America has access and opportunity to participate in active music making in his or her scholastic environment. Again, thank you to Yamaha. And if you haven't visited their YamahaEducatorSuite.com, please make sure you do that. There are a ton of resources there, and a lot of opportunities for summertime reading while you're sitting by the pool. Go to that and check it out, and become more engaged and more aware of things that are happening in your profession. Before we say goodnight, it's important you understand that now more than ever in these uncertain times continue to impact Music for All, and we are extremely grateful for any donations gifted to our nonprofit organization. If you enjoyed tonight's program, which I'm sure you did, and in order for us to continue to provide our free educational resources and advocacy materials, please consider gifting to Music for All at any amount possible. Your gift will allow us to serve our mission with future educational programming such as this webinar. So please visit musicforall.org/give. And as I mentioned, Music for All, we are here. The doors are open, the lights are on. We have been here, even in the midst of the dark days of the pandemic. This fall is going to be an incredible rebirth and a renaissance to everything that we've been waiting on. We have marching band shows scheduled. We're looking forward into 2022. The Tournament of Roses Band will perform in Pasadena, California in January with director Richard Saucedo leading that charge. And just an incredible opportunity for us to be out there front and center after everything has been so dark for so many months. And we're going to emerge from this, and we thank you for everything that you've done to be there with us and continue to spread the word that we can't wait to show you what we have next. Finally, remember that both Mind the Gap and Teaching Social and Emotional Learning Through Music series are available as podcasts, as well as the webinar video that you're seeing tonight. Please subscribe so you never miss an episode. Until then, for Music for All, my name is David Starnes. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. Thank you to all of our incredible panelists, and we look forward to seeing you again on another Mind the Gap episode very, very soon. Have a great summer, everyone. Good night.